What's up, Internet? You're tuning in episode 142 of the FlipScreen Games Podcast, a weekly video game podcast where a few best buds from different nations come together to discuss the wide world of video games. I'm your host, Peter Messi, joined as always by my very good friends and co-hosts, Mr. Stephen Radford
Hello, hello.
and Mr. Max Wright.
Hello, hello.
What?
You
Okay,
just
just steal my shit. It's fine.
I had a week off and still had no time to think about the new
Yeah, you
intro.
you had a week off and you completely just forgot
well,
how the show goes.
I don't know if you missed this bit of lore, Steve. I don't know if this happened on a week when you weren't on the show, but like months ago now, Max was like, I don't want to shift it up. I think maybe the Ahoy Ahoy era's ended. And now every week he's like, fuck, I still didn't do it. You didn't have to
every
tell
time.
anybody. You could have just workshopped it.
I wing it every time, and so far I've hit none of them. So that's good. I think it was hello twice as well.
Yeah, like I haven't even tried another one, so I don't even know that I could say you failed. It's like you haven't even taken a swing.
I'll think of something next week.
Sure, you
All
will.
right,
We'll
okay.
see.
Big week next week. I've got to do it for Summer Games Fest.
Yeah, well, speaking of which, Summer Games Fest is here this week. And I mean, I guess it's technically we're kind of in the throes of it, right? It kind of soft kicks off today. We had PlayStation last week, of course. Make sure you go check out the conversation that Ken and I had, all breaking down all of the announcements at Sony's event that just happened last week. So, I mean, whether you want to say that Summer Games Fest is this week or it's happening right now, the season is upon us, of course. So,
Yeah.
that means it's time for us to we're not going to do hard predictions because the last time we went to do a Nintendo Direct prediction, it just didn't happen. So I'm like out here, I feel like if we do too hard predictions, they might just cancel the whole thing. So I think let's go through all the big shows that have been identified, right, as part of the kind of larger web of events going on, and just talk about our hopes and dreams, we'll call them.
We really need a good name for this. I don't like Summer Game Fest. I feel like Jeff kind of tried stealing it all and just putting it all into his umbrella, but it's just it's so confusing. E3 was clear, it was obvious. It was like, everyone's here. And I guess there were like E3 adjacent things, but E3 was a good name to call it.
I think that's the thing that works about it for me a little bit more, though, is the idea that like there were always these events that had nothing to do with summer or with E3, that like Devolver's event, right? Or like, Day of the Devs and stuff like that, where all these things that like went on during E3 but were not necessarily connected to E3.
It was just the season. It was festive. I think what they should do is combine the Game Awards and Summer Games Fest under one Jeff Keighley umbrella, not his name, but it's like a brand, and then you have the, I don't know, XYZ Awards, the XYZ I don't know, whatever you want to call this.
Well, he does that one for like the opening night live at Gamescom as well.
Yeah,
That's like
that could
his
be another
thing,
one.
but it's also, it's like branded differently again.
It's because they're all their own thing. I think.
But why?
I don't know. I feel like it's too late. Like I think at this point, like he's especially with like the Game Awards, it's been going on for so long now. It's like, well, we're gonna rebrand it. Like you can't just change the name.
So this time, like in previous years, I would already be like thinking about putting my out of office on. I'd be sort of talking about my mates, whose house we going to, what food are we getting. Like we'd be planning it. We'd spend the whole week there. What games are we playing? Okay, let's get into Monster Hunter this week. Then I'll bring my 3DS. We'll just sit around play Monster Hunter all day. We'll watch games all night. We'll order a pizza, and then in the day we'll just fuck around because we'd had the whole week off work. Now I'm just like, I'll catch the odd stream. And for this podcast,
I think that's just the vibe of the year, though. Even Jeff Keighley said this week in the Q&A that he did about Summer Game Fest that his show is largely focused on announced stuff, like stuff we've already heard about, and it's kind of going over it again, or maybe seeing another trailer, maybe a date for it. But it's like a reflection on the industry as a whole that there's not much to show this year, and it really does feel like a quiet year.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that's most interesting about it to me is like how quiet it's been on both fronts. Because I feel like even in like years past, right, where there was maybe less like big tentpole releases that were coming out in a given year, there were still games on the horizon that you were talking about that were like, oh, like, yeah, like nothing big this year, but next year Starfield's coming or next year right? Like whatever. And I feel like, yeah, not only is it kind of a slower year overall, right? Like there have definitely been plenty of good releases, right? But I wouldn't say a lot that were major, right? Like I
Yeah,
don't
I
think there's
agree.
been a lot of games that have felt like real events, and I think even
Mhm.
No,
some of the
there's not
ones,
been the Elden Ring of the year so far, like a
yeah,
big AAA,
yeah. And I think even some of the games that came out that are like of that ilk, right, have like for whatever reason not caught the world on
Yeah.
fire, right?
Well,
Like
they've all just been wrapped up in controversy and discourse that just doesn't need to happen. Like Stellar Blade came out and was immediately just like, "Oh, no, I don't want to talk about this game because of all the discourse surrounding it." Dragon's Dogma 2, I was excited for that game, and all of a sudden everyone wants to talk about microtransactions and stuff like that. It's like, oh, like
frame
what?
rates and yeah,
Yeah, like, oh, how, like when do you get to just enjoy talking about a game? And like, maybe that's sort of taken away some of the fun, and we're waiting for Elden Ring DLC to come out and show us it's going to happen.
Is
it
that
is.
still not out? When is that coming out?
21st of June, Elden Ring
Yeah, it's
DLC.
right around the
Okay.
corner. Like preview started coming out this week.
Yeah,
But yeah, I mean, it is kind of nuts when you like think about it because I think part of the reason it probably feels as like bare as it does is when you compare it to last year, which was so stuffed. And it like
Mhm.
makes me wonder why some of these games came out last year. And like, I think a
mm,
lot of it comes down to like financial quarters and they already had gone through delays and it was kind of like this was just the year where every game that got affected by pandemic delays and everything, right? Like they all came out and then all the games that were supposed to come out came out. It was just a big one. But I mean, you
for
think
what it's
about like
worth.
how many games Nintendo put out in like a month at the end of the year last year, right? And
Yeah.
it's like, and they've had like, this year it's been what two releases, between
For
Princess Peach and Paper Mario.
what it's worth, I am still like I've got too much to play, whether that's just on PC. I haven't even thought about the Switch. Haven't picked up either of the PS5 exclusives from this year yet. At some point I might do. It's not like there's been nothing coming out, but it's been smaller stuff that maybe only caters to me or people who are into indie games and stuff like that. It feels like there's been a lot of stuff that's like, I'm gonna like this, I'm gonna talk about it on YouTube Shorts or on the podcast or whatever, but I
Yeah.
don't feel like that's gonna set the world on fire or blow people's minds. So I personally I'm like, oh Christ, there's loads going on, but I can see how the average the person that only buys the couple of huge like tentpole releases every year might be like, what do I play? And now we've had one of the three, what used to be the big three, whether that's still the case now in terms of these events. You used to get your PlayStation, your Xbox, your Nintendo. One of them is technically has already been. There's been a PlayStation stream now, and nothing really much came of it other than Astrobot. So
Oh,
that's already one third of the
you
hype.
weren't excited about Concord?
Oh, mate, don't get me started on that. I mean, you're lucky I was ill
Yo,
last week.
I think Concord looks cool. I
Yeah,
yeah, I do. I think people are like so fucking salty. It's like we
I
love
think
to
it was just like the bait and switch of like, this looks like a cool narrative game, and then it's like just a 5v5 shooter again.
yeah. Because
yeah, but it's
even
also like if you liked that like story stuff, it's like the whole conceit of it is that there's gonna be some of that every week, right? That like advances. I think that's kind of novel. But whatever.
well,
You can
Overwatch
hear
did that. Overwatch did like the odd, like, "Oh, here's some
yeah.
shorts,"
No, right. That's the difference though. You just said it's the odd. They would put one out like once every like several months. And that was part of the reason that I feel like Overwatch fell off was they were like, oh yeah, we're gonna explore the story. We're gonna explore the story. Here's a comic. Here's one video every time we put out a new character, right? Like, but yeah, we're gonna explore the story. And then they never did. And they never came out with the single player content. They never came out with anything that
Mhm.
really deepened the world. And it's like, I don't know. I think it's kind of interesting. I mean, who
Do me a
knows? It
favor.
might fall flat, but
Promise me you're not gonna spend £70, $70 on Concord, Pete. Promise me you won't do it.
I don't think it'll be a $70 game.
Promise me you won't pay
I won't. I won't.
$50.
I
If
won't I
it's free
won't
to
pay
play,
70.
crack on.
Yeah.
I
But
don't
yeah,
think
alright.
Pete's gonna play it full stop. I don't see it.
We'll
He
see.
loves being a contrarian. Everyone's like, "This looks bad," and he's like, "Nah, you're all
No,
wrong." That's classic
it's just
Pete.
like I don't like to hop on like bandwagons based on like nothing. Like it's like I'm reacting to what I saw, right? And between the trailer that they showed and the gameplay that they showed, I think they might have something. That doesn't mean that they will, but it's also like I how many times did we write off Helldivers last year of like, that's a little game, it's a little
Yeah,
this, it's a
Hmm.
little that.
constantly.
How many times did we talk shit about Pal World that is, oh, it's Pokemon with guns, it's a ripoff. Like,
I
I
mean,
think
that was just a meme game in the end. That's gone
okay,
nowhere
yeah,
now.
Moving
but
on.
that doesn't mean that it didn't make the company
Yeah.
hundreds of millions of dollars, right? Like it's like, you know,
True.
I think that we're like way too like eager to buy into narratives that we've already seen play out. And I'm just like,
Hmm.
I'm reacting to what we're seeing. And this kind of game, if it comes out and it connects with people and it has a content map, right? Like it can succeed. But obviously we've talked a ton about how tough it is to come out and establish yourself and like have staying power, but like Helldivers did it this year. So it's certainly not outside the realm of possibility, you know? Um, but
You're right though, Max. Like we have had the PlayStation State of Play, but if you remember last year, we had a similar thing happen with the State of
Oh,
Play, and
don't remember
then
this.
they were there at Summer Game Fest. PlayStation was there. They had things to show off. Like there
Okay.
were big reveals, and they've had that for the
yeah,
last couple of years with Jeff. Like they've
I,
still showed things off in the
Okay,
main
alright, fair enough.
showcase.
but I think to Max's point though, like I did walk away from that like feeling um I don't not like disappointed per se, because it was like a fine presentation, but like just longing for the like Sony presentations of old, right? Where it was like a gauntlet, right? Where it's like, who's going to take the weekend? Like, and, you know, PlayStation always had a good presentation. I think even if you're
Mhm,
not a PlayStation person, right? Like, if you're just judging it based on, you know, caliber of announcements, of pacing, of all that kind of stuff, like PlayStation often, I think would walk away with having the best presentation overall, even if you maybe had an announcement you liked more somewhere else, right? Like,
mhm.
um, and
My first PlayStation was a PS5, and I was there every year. Sony presentation. Let's watch. Let's see what they've got. I was there commenting on Horizon Zero Dawn for the 3 years they showed it off, and I was like, "Cool, this is cool that they're showing this game off." You know, blah blah blah. Never had any intention of playing it because I never had a PlayStation. I was there for the presentation and what they had to show,
yeah,
and I feel like
exactly.
this stream recently, I was more just like, "Oh, okay, okay, all right." And then when we saw Astro Bot, I was like, "Cool, great, here we go. They've done something interesting, and it's out this year, so great."
And it's like, that's great, right? Like, don't get me wrong, that like it's nice that it was anchored by something really exciting that's imminent. Like, again, I think it was a fine presentation, but when you think about, I think kind of what we used to expect, it definitely doesn't, feel like that. And I think we know that whenever we get the Nintendo Direct that's coming in June, we still haven't gotten a date for it yet, right? Like, I feel like it probably well, I don't know. I guess it
I
might.
think it's going to be soft again. No, I really do. I think it's going to be soft. I don't think they've got much left to show. They can't really, can they?
Yeah,
I'm with you.
exactly. Right. Is like whatever is like big, you have to imagine that they're holding for the next console. But also, like I say that, but the Mario Wonder reveal last year was
Mm,
like out of nowhere, and Mario RPG was out of nowhere, and they both came out that year. So the idea that they maybe have something like that is not Breath of
But
the
they've
Wild
still
is
got
not
like they've
whatever,
still
but
got some cards they can play. All you got to do is put Wind Waker out, and you'll probably sell a bazillion copies the back half of this year.
right. So, like,
there's
that's the
like
kind of thing
3.
where, like, they could come with something like that, and we'd be like, "Hey, that was big announcement, good direct."
Mhm.
But is that it's n I think it speaks to what we are talking about at the top, though, right? Where it's like, I'm happy to watch these presentations, like, I get excited for this season no matter what, but it doesn't feel like there's gonna be those big, juicy
Mhm.
hits
Do
that
you
we've come to
think?
expect over the last like 5, 6 years, because I think frankly we've been spoiled. Like we've been in a
Mhm.
real
Yeah.
golden age for the last couple of years where like I would say since 2017, right? Like it's been every year there's been a like, "Ooh, this is an argument for one of the best years of all
I do
time."
think there's going to be some juicy announcements at the Xbox thing. I think we're probably going to see some more gameplay. We get some release dates for the Indiana Jones game. It's not. I don't know if it's going to blow anyone away, but there are rumors of other
Yeah.
games. Like the Oblivion remake and stuff that we might see there to kind of tide
There's
people over.
there's that rumor. I don't necessarily put any stock in it, but there's a rumor the handheld rumblings that have been going on for so long
Mhm.
that they're gonna reveal something there or talk about it or tease it, which,
I
I
mean,
don't
that
know.
would be cool.
It would be.
That'd be a big thing if it's
I
there. I
still
don't
don't
think it's
know
gonna
that
be
I
there, no.
believe that that's real, but if it is, that would be hot. Like, that would be a big announcement, right? But,
Do you
like, I don't know.
do you think Xbox is really the only, one of the big 3 now that can do these huge presentations now just because of the
No.
sheer number of studios that they've
No.
got? Because when you think about the fact that Jeff's doing his own show and he's getting publishers there to present games, those games then aren't gonna be in the PlayStation Showcase a week
Yeah.
previously. So they're not gonna have the big games from, say, Capcom there because they're reserving it for Jeff's show.
Yeah, so I don't think it's a matter of PlayStation and Nintendo, like, not being able to do it. I think it's them not being interested in doing it. I think that Nintendo has gotten way, way more conservative when it comes to announcing projects ever since, um, how poorly Metroid Prime 4 turned out. Because I
Mhm.
think that they were really embarrassed by that. The fact that they, touted that as one of like at the launch reveal of the Switch, right? Was like, this is one of the games you're going to play on Nintendo Switch. And it's increasingly looking like it might not even come out on Switch, right? Like it could, but
Mhm.
if they don't announce it at this event in June, right? Then probably not.
You
And
see it with Metroid Dread when Metroid Dread was revealed in June, in my head, I was like, "Right, okay, we've got to wait, like, a year and a
years,
bit for this
right?
game,
At
2
least.
years for this game," and then they were like, "It's out in October," and I was like, "Oh my god, like, that is what a
Uh
massive
huh.
turnaround," and I don't think there's been other than, um
Mario Wonder was the same.
Yeah, it was
It
the
was
same.
very
We just
similar.
yeah,
talked
yeah,
about that. They
yeah.
did the
I think
exact
other
same thing
than
with Mario. They did the exact same thing with
mhm.
RPG.
I think it's Tears of the Kingdom is, like, the last game that they sort of revealed, and then it was like oh, I guess Pikmin 4 as well, where they sat on it for ages, and we were just like, "Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Where is it?" And I
Even that
think now
though, right?
really
Like
they
they
just
didn't
don't
reveal Pikmin 4. We just knew it was in development because
yeah, that's
Miyamoto had
true.
talked about it. It
That's
wasn't like
true.
and Tears of the Kingdom, right? They showed us what? 3 they showed it like 3 times in like 6 years. Like they barely talked about it, you know? And it was a
Yeah, but it was still
sequel.
something they brought up, you know? It was still
Yeah,
something that they
yeah.
brought up once, and then we didn't see it for a long, long time, you know?
Sure, sure.
Um,
But
I th
few and far between, you know? I
mhm.
think for, like, new things, things that are not sequels, things that are not promised and expected, I do think that they're less eager to talk about it because
Yeah.
what's the benefit, right? Like, if they can talk about it now and then market it for 6 months or whatever, right? Like, I guess they did that with Princess Peach and Luigi's Mansion where they, like, revealed that they were going to be coming, but, like,
Mhm.
I think you're
I think
seeing
that's a
less
normal
and less
amount
of
of
that
time,
from
though.
them right now.
Yeah, I agree. I
I
think
think
that
there's a trend across the industry, though. I feel like a lot of games aren't being announced way in advance these days. Like this happens
Yeah.
in certain cases, but for the most part, we saw the Indiana Jones game. What was it? The beginning of this year. We knew it was coming out this year. Yeah, we knew it was in development, but that was the first time we got a glimpse at it, and it's coming this year.
yeah, we're not getting these, like,
Allegedly.
4-year-long marketing E3s things PlayStation used to do with, like, God of War, for
Yeah.
example. You'd see that for, like, 3 years running. I think
I
that
mean,
the
dude, like you mentioned Horizon earlier, right? I think it was
mhm.
2016 was the year I want to say. It might have been 15, but they revealed Horizon, God of War, and like 2 other Death Stranding maybe was that same
Horizon's
year.
definitely had a couple of years of because I remember seeing it
No, no,
definitely
no.
come up
Yeah, yeah,
twice.
I was gonna say
Oh,
they
sorry.
revealed them all that same year, and then it was every year we got a check
Oh,
in.
I
It was
see.
like,
Yeah, yeah,
"Hey,
yeah.
remember that
Yeah.
game we told you about last year? Here's a
Well,
little bit
Horizon
more
came out
about
in
it."
2017, right? So it must
Yeah,
have been
I must be
prior
like
to that. So I
2015 or
guess.
something like that. Something like that. It was like yeah, it was still, like, quite early in the PS4's life cycle, I think, 'cause it
Yeah,
definitely
yeah.
came up at least twice before it then got revealed, and it came out in March. So,
It was
yeah, it must
very
have
much
been
like
2015.
you bought a PS4, you've been
Mhm.
enjoying Bloodborne, whatever else has come out. Here's what you have to look forward to in the back
End of
half of the
list.
generation, right?
Mhm.
And it's like I think so much of the like attitude right now of like what's coming from Sony, what's coming from Sony, right? Like think
Yeah.
about it. We had that whole conversation, about that earnings report that we keep bringing up about how they're like we're not going to have any games in our big IPs out this year and it's like I mean, well, obviously that wasn't true, right? Like Astrobot is an
I
established
mean,
IP.
it is true. I wouldn't call Astro Bot a big IP for them. It was like a.
Sure, but like that's exactly what I was talking about, right? Like when
Mhm.
that happened, and then there was the rumor where Jeff Grubb was like, "I mean, I know they said that, but I keep hearing that it's still coming out." Everyone's like, "Ah, you're wrong. Your source is wrong, wrong." And it's like, no, it wasn't. It's just I think that they are intentionally playing cards closer to their chest right now than
Mhm.
than has been historically true.
And they certainly have had to though. Going through a CEO change, getting new leadership on board. It's hard to know what the plan is long
Well, and
term there
again, they
with the
just
new leadership coming in.
they also just had the exact same fucking thing happen with this Last of Us game, right? Where like
Yeah.
they talked about that way back
We
in,
saw it 2 years ago at Jeff's show, I think it was now.
wasn't
But
it
they
last
were
year?
talking
I
about
thought
it prior
they showed the
before.
graphic and we're like, "Yeah, we're gonna talk about it
I
more."
I thought that was 2022, but yeah, it might have been last year
Maybe it
that
was.
Neil was on stage and showed off
Yeah.
the graphic and was like, "Oh yeah, here's like a tease of what it is." Because then they also announced the PC port of The Last of Us Part One at that
Mhm.
same event, which I
Yeah.
think was 2022.
I think a big problem with this year we're going to have, and I think maybe going forward we're going to have a similar problem where the like last 2 weeks of May, first 2 weeks of June are like hallowed ground. They're an ancient burial ground, and Summer Games Fest has been built on this ancient burial ground. Therefore, it is cursed because everything that is announced in those 2 weeks, people are expecting, shit, this is going to be huge. This is going to be such a massive E3. This is a massive event. Whereas now maybe there's less focus on releasing and announcing your games in June because you can do it whenever the fuck you want. Now Nintendo's proved you don't need an event like that. So now what we're going to end up getting is people getting really hyped up. I guess like the PlayStation was a good example where we go in like here we go boys, and it's a smaller event. It's a more normal event. It just happens to fall in this time. Jeff is trying to take all the attention that comes on E3 and in June, give it to himself. However, the publishers, the devs, maybe just don't have the interest in actually
Uh,
saving their stuff for that moment. And maybe we'll
yeah.
see with Nintendo when they're stuff, like we said, that they're not going to have anything massive to announce. But when they announce Nintendo Direct, people are going to be like, bang, right at the top. This is Switch 2. This is Metroid Prime 4. What it can
Even
actually
though they
just
told
be
us they're not gonna do that, right? They're like, "No
exactly.
hardware."
It could just be like, here's a few updates on a few things. People go, oh, why would you use those announcements, waste your June Direct on those announcements? And it's because that June Direct used to be a part of E3 and that doesn't exist anymore. They do directs
Yeah.
all throughout the year. So I think they're damned if they do, damned if they don't, really, when it comes to these streams now,
I
especially just in this month.
Yeah, I think you're spot on, man, because it's something that, like, you actually saw happen, with, like, Comic-Con, right? Like, San Diego
Mhm.
Comic-Con used to be, like, a big event where things would get announced, and then
Yes.
increasingly you saw, the bigger entertainment entities like Marvel or whatever be like, "Well, if we have our own event," right? Or, like, Disney has, like, that what's it called? D23, I think,
Yes.
Mhm.
or
Yeah.
whatever? Yeah.
And they do
Um
Star Wars Day as well
Yeah,
when they
right,
for
right. So it's like you make it even more granular, and it's like you have a day where it's like, "Hey, today's the day we're doing a PlayStation, presents," right? And it's not the week of June, then it's like you get to own the day, and it's not like, oh, who was better, PlayStation or Xbox or Nintendo? It's just like, no, like we had our day and it happened and everybody was excited about it, right? And it's like you can see why from a marketing perspective, that is probably better, right? To not invest hundreds of thousands of dollars into a marketing event that is inherently oversaturated because everybody's doing marketing events that week. But like,
Well, there is more to Jeff's show this year, though, right? You can get tickets, you can go along.
sure.
There's like a public element to it. They're still doing their play days where the press get to play these games and obviously report on them. So there is like that interactive element that you wouldn't necessarily get by just having a direct in the middle of July.
And maybe that's the thing that does eventually bring some of these bigger players back, but I think that hasn't been present the last couple years. So like that kind of value of like getting boots on the ground and meeting with people wasn't really as much a part of the event as it was at E3, right? That was the thing we talked about all the time and all the dozens of conversations we've had about like should E3 go away, all that stuff. And it's like that was a big part of the value of E3 was that it was an industry event, not just a presentation, right? The presentations anchored the event, but you'd go there and find a publisher for your game, or you'd go and, like try to make connections to find jobs or whatever, right? And,
And GDC's taken over a lot of that in terms of the
sure.
industry stuff with developers and publishers, but I think getting games in front of the press, especially for some of the smaller studios and the smaller events that are happening around here,
I think
like the wholesome directs and the indie stuff and all of those kind of shows, I feel like would they sometimes get lost in the noise, but I feel like when eyes are on video games for a whole week, that's when they can kind of come front and center.
I will say, I think the one thing I'll give Jeff and like the Summer Games Fest thing is, like I said, I think all of these events probably get more views now because they get more eyes on them because people do know to be like, oh, I want to watch Summer Game Fest and I want to watch the Xbox presentation and the Nintendo Direct. So like, let me go look at Jeff's webs. Oh, there's this an indie event. Let me watch that. Yeah, I like indie games. Or there's you know, like there's a lot of now, I think, like, more specific stuff, right? Like you said, like there's the wholesome direct, and I could see someone who's like maybe not aware that that's a thing, but like, oh, I like farming games, or I like life
Mhm.
sim games, or whatever. Like, why don't I check that out, right? Or like the PC gaming show, right? Or like the gaming awards and stuff like that, that are like something that you just might not have heard of otherwise because they don't get as much attention. Day of the Devs has been an awesome event for a long time that not a lot of people watch, and I definitely think it seems to get I guess my assumption is that it probably gets a bump from just like, the schedule we're looking at right now from Ryan Brown, Toad's Anime on Twitter, right? Is like a spreadsheet of like every event that's happening this week. And if you're somebody who's in the conversation paying attention to this stuff, like you're gonna see these lists and maybe think you want to go check out some of these events, right? Whereas like during the E3 era, it's like you only would see the official events and everything else was just kind of like, you know, if you caught it, you caught it. If somebody,
Yeah, but that's easier. You know E3 is on. You're tuning in to E3. There's maybe like one. This is E3, whereas now it's like
yeah,
here's 50 events, and you have to now fill.
definitely.
You have to look at a list like this to be able to even see them.
And I think that's the problem, right? Is like I think it's not a perfect replacement for the best part of E3, right? And I think as a result, like there is less incentive for the bigger players to be involved, and like I think that does probably consolidate the bigger announcements to like two or three of these events. But I think also part of it is like you look at this list and a lot of the people that used to anchor E3 don't have presentations anymore, right? Or they're not, like again, like Bethesda was absorbed, right? Like they used to have their own presentation. Now they're part of the Xbox showcase, right? Like um EA like used to do their event, which then they made independent, and then now that's just a thing they don't do anymore, right? And
Well, they're down as being part of the Summer Game Fest still on Jeff's website, so presumably they will have something to show
oh really? I didn't
in
see them on the
Jeff's
list. I didn't see
presentation.
where
If
are they?
you scroll down to the partners section on the Summer Games Fest website, their
Oh,
logo's
okay.
there, along with
So
Sega and some of the
yeah,
others, so they're
that
probably in Jeff's show.
But I mean, that's to my point though, right? It's like it's not that like they won't have a presence, it's that they don't do their own event anymore. So it's
Mhm.
like we used to get Ubisoft, Square, Bethesda, and who's the other? There was one other of the more like middle tier guys, I think, that had one, but and EA, right? Um, and then the big three, right? So it's like there was like 7 or 8 events that you would watch, and those were the big events. And now it's like to your point, Max, there's like, you know, twice as many, but like I mean, if you look at the ones that are like the big, huge publishers like that, I mean, yeah, it's like, it's a lot smaller. It's Summer Game Fest. It's, Devolver if you want to put them on that level, which I think they probably are closer to that level now, right? Um and then you've got Xbox and Ubisoft. And then, Nintendo. But like that's not even really technically connected. So, I think, yeah, like the growing pains of the last couple of years are like definitely, I think, just starting to shape what the show is and what it isn't. And I think like as much as we still think of it as like, it's E3 season, it's like, I mean, yeah, I mean, E3's gone though. And I don't think we should expect these events to hit like that anymore. Which is
I've
a
not been
bummer.
expecting much of Jeff's events for a while, I'll be honest with you. They kind of always, I don't know, they never really leave me massively satisfied at the end of it. There's always like
Yeah, I'm
a
with you.
couple of good games, but then there's always this kind of tone of Jeff not addressing something at the game awards that should have been addressed, pushing people off stage before they get to finish their announcements there. Then like there's just too many sci-fi horror games as the Summer Game Fest, or there's always something, or a focus on celebrities rather than on Hollywood stars rather than on actual gaming figures in the industry that people care about. So but I kind of feel like that would have been the same case for E3. I feel like when the publishers themselves were managing the events, you kind of got a lot more interesting stuff happening and a lot more variety
Yeah, I
than
guess, but I mean, like, there was also a lot of that same filler bullshit, right? Like, I think
yeah, oh
some
yeah,
of
like you
some of
watch a
that is
Ubisoft
rose-colored
presentation and there's
glasses,
always
right?
like a Just Dance piece where they've got
Yeah.
some people in costumes and shit.
I feel like most of the Ubisoft presentations over the year would be like, at most, there was 1 or 2 actually interesting announcements, and then there was like 45 minutes of not a lot going on,
Yeah.
right? But yeah, I mean, I'm with you. Like, I think Summer Game Fest has been like fine. You know, like I think by and large, like they've been fine events. They've had, good to, solid announcements, right? Like I think that overall I have more faith in a Summer Game Fest coming together as an event that like works than I do the Game Awards, especially after this past year, right? Like um, I think for the last couple of years, right? Like Steve, you and I have generally kind of given that show the benefit of the doubt as it's been going through growing pains and evolving. And I think Summer Game Fest, like we kind of had the same attitude for of like, wow, it's only like the first one, it's only the second one, it's only the third one, right? So it's like, I think there's a reasonable amount of rope to extend when you're dealing with, trying to evolve and hone in a product. But yeah,
Mhm.
I definitely was I had a lot of issues with how last year's Game Awards played out. So I'm definitely feeling kind of like, you know, um, show me something, right? Like I'm not going in with particularly high expectations for any of these events, I guess, aside from Xbox, because they have kind of hyped it up. But I also feel like that's probably in part because they're very eager to get some press that's not negative right now. So the idea that they might have a
I
couple
think
big things
I
to
think
show
it's
is
I'd be
reasonable, but
surprised. I would be surprised if they didn't have anything, right? They've canceled BlizzCon, presumably because they're going to show whatever Blizzard has here. Well, they've got whatever Bethesda's working on. We know that Bethesda has that Indiana Jones game from Machine Games. Obviously, they've just closed a bunch of Bethesda studios. We don't know if they were finalizing anything there. And then there's the Call of Duty thing, which on its own is a big hype announcement for a lot of people.
yeah.
It's another game and a beloved franchise of a game series, the Black Ops series that people absolutely love and are going to be excited for. And I
Mhm.
think the fact that they've given that a dedicated presentation because it is a multi-platform game means people will probably tune in and maybe catch the end of the Xbox presentation just ahead of the Call of Duty stuff. So I think there's a good chance that people
I
will
mean,
have eyes on the Xbox show.
I would guess that the Xbox event is the most watched thing anyway, because I think that
Mhm.
it's the only like they're the only ones that I feel like have really maintained the same kind of air of like this is an E3 presentation, right? Like we're
Yeah.
putting a big hour-long presentation with big stuff. I think the bigger concern for them is that I think that they've really like left a bad taste in people's mouths, because I think that even if they, do end up coming correct with like a really exciting presentation, that there's a good chance that people walk away from it kind of just feeling like, okay, but how many times have you had one of these presentations where you promised me the moon and then it was nothing, right? Like you told me all these games are going to come out in 18 months. Where's Hollow Knight, right? Like, you've been hyping up. I watched a 45-minute presentation about Starfield and I was underwhelmed, right? Or, I like hyped up
I mean, yeah,
X and Y
I
and X
do.
and Y, and it's like, how many of those games have come out and really, really been fire, right? And, like, I I don't necessarily feel that way in terms of, like, I can go into the event and judge it for what it is, but, like, I do think that if all we're looking at is, like, more like let's get excited about the future of Xbox. It's like, I'm kind of done getting excited about the future of Xbox, because it's like we've been doing that for 5 years and it, very little has come from it, right? Like very, very little have come from these acquisitions, and very little of, the promise of this generation, aside from, the technological advancements that they've made with the hardware, have really come to bear fruit. And I wouldn't be surprised if, even if you have a great presentation where you announce a cool new game, or, give us an update on something like Indiana Jones, like, are you going to still have like this flood of commenters being like, yeah, okay, but is it going to be any good? Like, is it, or is it going to be another Starfield? Is it going to come out and not even work like Redfall? Are you going to cancel this game too? Are you going to close that studio down before it ever comes out? Like, you know, and who knows, right? Like people's memories are short. So if it's a hot presentation with hot trailers, maybe that's enough.
Oh,
But
yeah, definitely, and I could see them dropping Silksong there. I could easily see that. We know it's been approved at various ratings
Mm.
boards around the world at this
Maybe, but
point.
it's yeah, but, like, who the fuck knows, right? Like, I thought
No,
that a few months ago, and it still isn't
maybe
here.
someone
So
at YouTube knows if they've uploaded the video to the back end,
Yeah.
man,
but
oh,
who knows?
I can't wait to talk about that story. Jesus. But, yeah, it's interesting because I do think that, like, that's the showcase I'm most excited for, but I also feel like it's the one that has the most baggage going into it.
Yeah, it does, but I don't know. I'm kind of just gonna. I want to just go into it and enjoy what they show. My
Yeah,
expectations on Xbox are lowered at this point anyway, but my expectations of PlayStation were lowered as well. I feel like my expectations of pretty much anyone that's not Nintendo at this point to really deliver something that I'm going to be interested on a yearly basis are pretty minimal. Nintendo's really been the only one that's put something out in a year that I am interested in and will pick my Switch up to play. I haven't really played much on my Xbox this year. I didn't really play on my PlayStation last year or this year. So it really does depend what they've got. But I mean if you're ranking them, anything's going to beat the PlayStation event from last week, I think. I mean, really, Astrobot was the only thing that I saw wild hype about coming out of that presentation from pretty much everyone. And I think we're probably going to have a few games at Xbox where people are just like, oh shit, I'm really excited about this. Because people were really excited about Indiana Jones when it was announced and the
definitely.
gameplay was revealed. The fact that we're probably going to get a release date and we'll also get, a bunch of other games. I think we will see Silksong there, which will
I just
undoubtedly be a hype announcement.
I don't know. If Silk Song's there, that would be huge, but it's just like I don't know. I'm not super confident in that one. Indiana Jones is an interesting one to me because I think if they have a really good showing and it has a release date, um, that that could be it. But it's also like I wouldn't be surprised if that game gets delayed. Would you? Like, are you
No,
definitely sure it's coming out this year? Because I'm not.
I am pretty sure it's coming out this year. I feel like they've learned their lesson. At least I hope they have, in the same way that Nintendo did, that they reveal games closer to the finish line because Starfield was a
They
disastrous
gave Starfield
announcement.
so many release dates,
Yeah, they
though. I
did.
just don't know. I don't know. Maybe. I hope
Didn't they
you're
keep
right.
saying like, this is the one, and then you know
Machine Games though,
one of
have they
those
like
ones.
ever really done that? Have they ever announced like say
No.
Wolfenstein and then not released it? I feel like they've pretty much only revealed and released games when
Yeah,
they're
I
ready.
think I think you're right about that, and, Machine Games is obviously a studio that, has a track record for delivering, so, I'm not necessarily, like, concerned that that game's gonna come out and disappoint, but it's also
Mhm.
like, I don't know, like, Indiana Jones is not Spider-Man,
Well,
you
I
know?
mean, the word on the street that there's a new Doom as well, and I know people get excited about
I've heard about
those, like
this.
the
That would
next
be really
Doom.
sick. That would be a
That'd be
really
cool.
big one, and that's the thing, where it's like, to your point, they have so many studios in their arsenals that could have big games to talk about that, like, maybe they will just come out and blow everybody's hair back, and, like, maybe you're right, but, yeah, I don't know, maybe it is that, like, I just have reservations now
Yeah.
because of
Yeah,
how the
and
last
and that's totally understandable. We don't know what Rare's been working on since they did that kind of reveal trailer
yeah, and then they
for
were like,
basically to hire people. But then we also know that Blizzard's been working on a new game. The Diablo team's been working on a new game. What's that? When are we going to see that? We've got
yeah,
Fable. We're going to get an update on Fable. There's a ton of games that are
like, and
announced
there's, like,
that we
games like
know about.
Avowed and stuff like that are, like, not that far
Hmm.
away. We know Outer Worlds 2 is in development, like, they're
Yeah,
yeah.
maybe it's more updates than new stuff, but I guess they most of them are. But I mean, the thing is, we've already had a good Xbox thing this year, which we haven't had really had a good PlayStation. We haven't had a great Nintendo Direct either. Like we've not had. Whereas I feel like the last Xbox thing that we watched, I thought was pretty good. I enjoyed it. I thought
Yeah.
they had a lot of good stuff. They had a good showing, and I think they probably have less to prove now. Now that we know what they actually have coming out than anyone else.
Genuinely, I, like, can't remember the last time that like, I don't remember the last PlayStation Presents, right? So it's like, I can't remember what
The
their last big
showcase,
event was.
the PlayStation Showcase,
Showcase,
or
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
that's yeah,
it's
I mean,
been
I
it's
can't
been a
remember them for the last
while
few years.
though,
Well, as soon
like
as they stopped doing them as part of E3, I don't think I've paid attention to any of them because there was one where I think they had one year where it was just like, "Oh, here's a lot of recaps, like nothing new." Fine, that was fair enough, fine. But yeah, since
May
then there's not been a big
2023,
one.
by the way, was the last one.
It was only a year ago.
there
What
was
was
Yeah.
in
one
there?
last year. What was the headline from it?
Metal Gear Solid Delta, Marathon, Destiny
Oh
2 stuff. They
yeah.
called that one a showcase. A lot
Shit.
of PlayStation
Yeah.
VR2 stuff there. Tons of
Okay. I
PlayStation
forgot about
VR2
that.
stuff.
That
The
yeah, that
last time
marathon
they
got
did
revealed at
anything
that
good for
event.
PSVR 2.
God. So I mean, like that's the thing is that like if that was last year and I'm like I don't even I couldn't even conjure it, right? Like that's a bummer. Um
But
I
what
mean,
was
it
at
was
last
a
year's Nintendo Direct? Like last year's June
That's
Nintendo Direct?
I feel the same way though, right? Like I don't think
Yeah.
that Nintendo's had a lot of super exciting stuff recently, but I mean like to we brought it up earlier, like last year at least, like they did have stuff like Wonder, right? Where it's like
Mhm.
that's a sick announcement and it's out in a few months. Like,
Mhm.
that is really, really exciting, and like I think they are able to at least deliver stuff like that on a consistent basis, and I guess like I don't know. Like maybe it is just like unfair to like be comparing these smaller events to like what we used to get. But I think that is to your point, like this time of year feels special. It feels like it's supposed to be a marquee event. And the fact that
even then, though, like, even since E3, we've had good presentations from PlayStation. Some of the showcases they've done in the PS5 era have been great, and we haven't I don't feel like May 2023 has really lived up to it, but, there were some good reveals there. We saw Spider-Man 2 gameplay footage there for the first time, which was
and
a big one,
they had that
and Marathon was obviously a big
individual
one.
state of play about that was like that is the thing I think they've done well. Like the individual state of plays for Spider-Man, for Horizon, for Final Fantasy, like those have all been really good. It's like the kind of more like general ones that I feel like end up being like, okay, maybe there's one thing that you walk away from, right? Like we said with last week with Astrobot, like everybody agreed that was a cool announcement, right? But most of the other stuff, I think people are divided. But I don't know, I guess that's also kind of the nature of these events, right? Like, they're not always gonna all be for everybody. Like, if you
Mhm.
walk away with a handful of things you're interested in, like, that's probably the best you can hope for, right?
Yeah, and I think out of all of the events that we've got going on this week, I think there's going to be something. I for one am excited for whatever Capcom's got to reveal. We have not got a date for the Capcom showcase yet, but no doubt it's coming. I think we're probably going to see that Resident Evil Code Veronica remake that's been leaked, that was found like data mined. So I'm excited about
That's an
that.
exciting
I'm
one for
excited to see
you.
what.
I know you've been waiting for that for a
Yeah,
long time now.
yeah, because I hated Resident Evil 4. I tried it. It wasn't for me.
That's
But
fine.
Code Veronica is a
Long
phenomenal game,
long
and not enough
game.
people have played it.
I, uh, I I think the most exciting thing for me from that would definitely I would love to see them, like, announce a new, Mega Man project that it, like, looks exciting. Like, I feel like that's something that, like, it's such a bummer to think, like, how influential, Mega Man is it 9 and 10 or 10 and 11?
10 and 11.
10 and 11.
No, 9 and 10. Sorry,
Is it
9 and 10. Sorry.
right? Okay, okay.
9 and 10.
Um
11 was the 3D one on the Switch. 9 and 10 were on the Wii,
Yes, right.
WiiWare.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
It's a bummer to think like how influential 9 and 10 were in like the early days of like, indie game, DLC, WiiWare, like all that, the Xbox
Mhm.
store, like that kind of stuff. And yeah, that it's just they've never been able to like 11 was such a disappointment. It just wasn't it didn't feel like anything special or meanful. And
Mega
I
Man
would really
9
love something fresh.
Mega Man 9 was the first time I ever, like, bought Wii points, bought the cards, scraped them off, bought the game, and then I was, like, desperate for 10, and when 11 came out, I won it in a competition. I was like, "Oh, yeah, Mega Man 11." And I
Nice.
think I got, like, 3 worlds in, and I was just like, this just isn't it. This
Yeah.
isn't it." They've modernized in all the wrong ways, whereas at the time, Shovel Knight had just come out a couple of years prior, or at least the the 3rd DLC for it, whatever, had just come out,
Yeah.
so had recently played that, and I was like, "Oh, what a" like, this is what it should be. This is what it could be,
Uh-huh.
and yeah, it's not. But for me, Konami, Castlevania. That's what they keep doing. Castlevania stuff in anything other than their own, like an
Wait, we're
actual
talking about
Castlevania
Capcom.
game. Sorry, why did I think we were talking
I
about
don't know why
Konami
you
for some
jumped to
reason?
Konami.
Sorry. Then let me say, I hope for my sake and the
That's
prediction's
fine,
sake
though.
that
You can still
that
want that.
Pragmata. Oh, I could do want that, yeah. Sorry, that Pragmata isn't revealed because as good as it looks and as excited as I am for that game, it's on my predictions that it doesn't come out this year.
I really hope
Um,
it is revealed now. I really wish we see everything about it and a release date, maybe a shadow drop.
that would be great for you.
We-
Wouldn't be great for me. But I tell you what, I am looking forward to from Capcom, and that's seeing more Monster Hunter Wilds. But what I want is to see more Monster Hunter Wilds, but not put as a because I don't know if you noticed about the trailer that they showed off, and they did this with World as well, and they announced that is they tried to make the trailer look like a game PlayStation gamers would want. They made it look like it was like slow and you're stalking, and then there's
Story
like it's really
driven.
smooth and there's a story to it. And it's all like this smooth like cinematic gameplay. And Monster Hunter is janky as fuck, and it's meant to be janky as fuck. And I think that hopefully at the Capcom trailer where we don't have this whole aimed at PlayStation gamers thing, we can get a more real look of like, here it is with the fucked up UI and all of the shit's going on, and you're fighting a monster, and yeah, you might do the same stuff, and it's all like, yeah, hopefully we see that from Capcom.
Yeah, that'll be good to see. I mean, I kind of want Ubisoft to show me the next Far Cry and for me to be excited about it because it feels like the last couple of generations of Far Cry. I've
Six
just
six was such a disappointment. Like I didn't like 5 like that much, but at least I finished it, you know? Like
yeah.
6 I bounced off that so early.
There's
Six
too
Jack
much
Harlow,
weird
I think
shit
so.
like building
So
out outposts and
bloated.
stuff.
Yeah, like it's just like all the different ammo types and it's like too many companions. I don't know. It just felt like
Mm,
way too much. Like it needs like I think it needs like a bit of a like a reboot, you know?
Mm.
Like I like call it Far Cry and like fucking, take it back to its basics, you know?
Yeah,
I
that would be good. The other thing I really want to see, based on Mac, to counter Max's prediction that Castlevania is not going to be revealed, I want Valve to show me something new at the PC gaming show. That'd be great. Or even at Jeff's event, Steam's in as a partner at Summer Game Fest. Maybe they show off Deadlock. We know we pretty much
yeah.
know it's a thing now. We've seen leaked videos all over the internet about it, and they filed a trademark for it. So I'd be surprised if we don't see it sometime this
Or
year.
Concord if that gets revealed. Yeah, I think that's definitely the stuff I'm, like, most interested in because like, looking at I don't know, like, I guess, like, some of the other kind of options, like, I don't know, like, there's definitely
Evolve has got that game from the ex Pokemon dude, though, right? The
yeah,
what's that
Lucky
called?
Spire.
you're thinking of, yeah, Plucky Spire.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
I'm
it's like
excited to see
Squire.
that
I'm
again.
not though. I want to
Uh,
play it, don't get me wrong, I'm excited for that game,
I
but
want a release date.
I've seen it like 3 times though. Like I'm just want it. Like don't get me wrong. If they have a release date, I will be excited about a release date. I'm not excited for another trailer at this point though, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like that's great, but that's how I feel about like Hollow Knight, right? Where it's like, another Hollow Knight reveal like even if it is the date, like it's gonna have this air of like, okay, fucking finally,
I think
like
it's a shadow drop. Wherever that gets announced this Summer Game Fest, if it's a Jeff show, if it's at the Xbox show, or if they just decide to drop it themselves, I think that game's imminent. I really do.
I mean, it literally has to be imminent, right? I don't know. Like it feels so like such a fever dream at this point.
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. I think for me, like the thing that would be the biggest win would be to walk away from this feeling excited about next year. And like
I
feeling like the conversation we had at the beginning of this episode about like feeling that kind of like I don't know, just general sense of like malaise about it is kind of like something that
Yeah.
I would love to get away from. Like I'd love to walk out of this event being like, wow, yeah, like that really exceeded my expectations. And even if it's not all stuff that's for me, right? Just like a caliber of announcements and
Mhm.
releases to look forward to that are, worth talking about.
Yeah, I gotta say I disagree. I want to be excited about this year. I feel like at the moment I've got nothing I'm really excited about for 2024.
Oh,
I,
really? There's nothing coming out this year? I mean, I guess I actually don't know what you played this year other than Blatro, to be honest.
Not
So I don't
much,
know
not
what you
much.
yeah?
I'm planning on picking up Animal Well, but I haven't had a lot of time to play games. Me and Pete are going to do an episode about it at some point about how This year we've just played old games. I played Hitman. Pete's played Fallout 4. We've not really had a chance to play
I've
much new
not
stuff.
touched a
I
game
played
since
I played a lot more new releases than you though.
Yeah, you have.
since I got the 100% collection in Balatro like a week and a bit ago. I have just not been able to boot anything up for longer than 20 minutes. So I'd love to have a conversation about at what point do you just go like, okay, maybe I'll take a break or something
The
like that.
teaser.
Yeah,
Maybe they don't
yeah.
have to be
Yeah.
playing something.
Yeah, I mean
But
that's
I
that's
want
something that like I think I've found with like going back to older stuff lately has been like when there isn't something to like be excited about and look forward to, it's like I'm trying to just, um I don't know, like just chase whatever feels interesting at the moment, right? And it's like
which is weird because, like, I don't know why I feel so strange about that because I do it with movies and TV shows. Like, I watch The Office a million times and I don't
Mm.
feel any way about it, but why
That's
do I
half
feel
an
weird
hour,
about
I guess. That's just
not
half an
playing a
hour
game?
as opposed to
But it's not just half an
well,
hour, it's like 4 episodes deep, and I'm
that's
like,
true.
yeah, or
it's
like
just
if you're
on.
rewatching it over and over again, it's a lot more than a half
Yeah,
hour,
that's
right?
Yeah.
true.
Like,
You get to the end, you immediately start
yeah.
again.
And yet I boot up Netflix and there's all this choice of anything, and I pick The Office, or I
I
pick
mean,
something I've seen before, and I do the same thing on Game
That's
Pass.
not to, like, pathologize on the podcast or anything, but that to me sounds like probably anxiety, right? It's like you're
Hmm.
picking something that is familiar because you're overwhelmed and you don't wanna make a choice. Sounds like
Probably,
you
yeah.
probably need to start a new game, you know? You probably gotta, like, just jump into something, and if it doesn't connect, jump into something else, right?
Mhm.
Like, because that's I definitely hit that point a couple, months ago where it was, like, coming off of, Pepper Grinder and was like, I don't have anything that I'm excited to jump into. And yeah, Fallout ended up being the thing after like I tried a few other games. Like I just was like, you know what? I'm in the mood for this, I think. Why not? Right? Like, why don't I get into it and not, you know, I don't know, like be like, oh, should I play some other newer thing? It's like, well, yeah, but like, do I feel like it? If not, then no, right?
Before we wrap up, what's everyone's, like, number 1 wish that we see this week from Summer Game Fest or all the other adjacent presentations?
Um,
I'd like to see Nintendo, if it is this week at all, give us um, Metroid Prime 4 in some format. I would like for them to say, "Yeah, cool, here it is." Um, we know it's taken X, Y, Z. You know, it's taken forever for you to ever see this game. Here it actually is. You know.
yeah. I do think that would probably be the most exciting thing that could get announced. Because I think even if it's not a release date or a window, like just getting to see it and see that it's real, is something that I think would go over really big. I think for me, if I'm trying to think of what is the thing I would be most excited about, would be I think if that rumor about Xbox working on some kind of handheld is true and they actually like
Mm.
show us hardware.
Hardware reveals
That
are
would be
always
sick.
exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, like, that's just a cool moment no matter what, and, I think that's something that regardless of all the other kinda stuff going on or whatever, right, like, would be like, "Whoa, that's interesting. That changes things. What does that mean for Game Pass? How that increases the value of the library so much," I think it would be a very, cool announcement that invites a lot of interesting discussion after the fact.
Yeah, I agree with that one, but I'm as I said, very excited to see what either Blizzard's been working on, the Diablo team have been working on, or the Resident Evil team. Like those are my two probably favorite game franchises. I'd also love to see what IO's been cooking up. Been playing Hitman again because I
Yeah.
can't keep away from that game. Where's the 007 game? Are we ever going to see
Oh
it?
yeah.
That actually, now that I'm thinking about it, because I forgot you mentioned earlier, since EA is a partner with like the Game Fest event, I think number one for me would be a full length, like in depth look at Dragon Age Dreadwolf with
Mm.
with a release date, or even a window. That would be that's a double-edged sword because if it looks great, then I'm through the roof excited. That's my number one anticipated game. If it is not what I'm looking for, then that'll easily be my biggest disappointment. So We shall
No
see.
way.
Keeping
Yeah.
my fingers crossed for you. They did reveal that game at the Game Awards, right? It was at Jeff's event that they
I don't know
initially
if it was
spoke about
revealed
that.
there for the first time, but I think they did talk about it at one of there was definitely a interaction there.
Yeah, because they did that. I think they revealed the name of the game there, and they also did
I
the
think that's
same
right.
thing with that Mass Effect, like the helmet reveal trailer. That was, I think, a Jeff event as well.
Um, mm, maybe that's right, the first one, yeah, because then there's
Mhm.
that other one that they had that was on Mass Effect Day, but
Mhm.
I don't know, I'm having trouble keeping all the last couple of years of, like, this stuff straight,
Yeah.
honestly. It was a lot easier, I think, in years past. But yeah, I definitely think that that's one that could happen because it's like, we know that game's been in development for a long time, but, like, it has gone through multiple, like, shifting of hands and
Let's
restarting
hope it's not
development,
an
and
Anthem. Let's really hope it's not.
that's my fear, right? Because it's like, I know that there was a version of it where it was a live service game, and then there was a version of it where it wasn't a live service game, then they scrapped that and made it a version where it was one, then they scrapped that and went back to making it a single player game. So, I have an overwhelming amount of anxiety for how this project will turn out. I mean, shit, forget Anthem. I hope it's not a Mass Effect Andromeda because that game was also a massive disappointment. So,
I remember that.
we'll see, right? But until given a reason to not, I'm going to keep the faith, and we'll hope for the best.
Mhm. Well, fingers crossed that we all get what we want this week, 'cause that would be wonderful.
And we'll obviously be excitedly talking about it every event, or not every event, but like when we get round to it, right? We'll be
Yeah, I
here
mean,
chatting.
so what we're thinking about right now, I think, is we were talking about doing some extra coverage on Sunday as kind of like, let's, do some reactions to the individual events, and then maybe we'll do like a grading of the whole thing on the podcast next week. But either way, you're gonna get at least one extra episode, I believe. And yeah, we're gonna cover all of the major announcements and all the stuff that we're excited about. And of course, if there's anything that you're excited about that comes out from any of these events that are kind of, interconnected here at Summer Game Fest, make sure you write in and let us know, right? And of course, you can do that in a bunch of different ways by heading over to FlipScreen.games. That's our website where you will find links to all the places we are all over the web. And that is, of course, the best way for you to get involved and show your support, just like our Patreon producers did for the month of June. They are, of course, Arnold J. Rimmer, Christopher Lenz, Gabriel Hasselmeyer, aka Sobe, Snack It Go, Steve Stompy, Susan Likes Cats and also Boobies, Voodoo Vic, Ty the Dude, and Waka Hula. Thank you all so much for your support on this very special episode of the Flip Screen Games podcast. If you want to go and show your support just like they did, or write in with your thoughts, predictions, or reactions to anything that goes on this week, head over to flipscreen.games. That's a website where you can get involved however you choose to get involved. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Flip Screen Games podcast. For the crew, I've been Pete. He's been Steve. He's been Max. We'll see you next week.